Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday and welcome to the live. I'm Jen Snow, your Soul Regression coach, clinical hypnotherapist, Reiki master, intuitive and medium, and animal communicator. And I'm here because, well, I have this poll to talk about cutting cords and energy. But first off, I want to say hello, Purple Princess. Hello, Alex. Thank you for being here live with me. And I want to talk about this last couple weeks. So I lost my voice last week. I sounded like a squeaky toy who swallowed a frog. It was really entertaining. It was funny when this came on. It wasn't a sore throat. It wasn't a scratchy throat. It was like a fuzzy throat. And it got me thinking and what it kind of like the tangent it took on as I was regaining that beautiful voice, the one that doesn't sound like a 1-900 operator, ate a squeaky toy and a frog all at once, combined, blending everything together, is things got to change. Things changes in the air, and I know a lot of us are going through this. I know a lot of us are being faced with obstacles and shadows and energies that are deeply rooted both in our own personal soul journey and our generational and ancestral soul journey. And there's a lot of shift happening right now. So, got me thinking. We're going to change the show a little, but I haven't quite figured out where that's going to take us. But know that in the new year, things are going to be shifting because I want to tell a story and I want to connect in a different way. And I'm not saying I won't do the guided meditations because I'm definitely going to keep this on the roll because I really do feel and believe that as a collective, when we get into this space and we come together and we get into that place of oneness or that place of self-source and soul home base, that there's a lot of positive change that we can make. But I also want to tell a little bit, I want to share my journey a little more than I have. So I'm not sure what that voice is going to look like yet. I'm not sure what that is going to entail for recordings and shows, but the creativity part of me is kind of stepping in. I know there's going to be some new things that are coming up, such as workshops, which are for guided sessions with, journals, interactive journals that you can fill out both digitally or get printed. So there's a lot of things happening. The new year's going to be a splash of boom because, well, that's how change works sometimes. And we're just going to see where your next part of this chapter takes us. I was writing my book and I scrapped all 8 chapters because it's not the story I want to tell. It's not how I want to tell it. So I'm in the process of reading a book that inspired me to scrap my book. And it's funny as that sounds, I haven't even read the book yet, but a lot of us have seen the show Love, Eat, Pray. And I was sitting down reading the book and I hated every chapter in it. I was like, oh my God, I don't even want to read this. And I realized that the voice that was telling the story, the narrative, and was writing the story was not actually a voice that is authentic. And so I'm going to read that book over Christmas, Eat, Love, Pray, and I want to see how that writer wrote the book because I don't know why, it just stuck with me. And it's been with me for a while. And I was like, oh, why is this book? I haven't even read this book. I just saw the movie. And that's rare for me because I'm a reader. But I'm going to read it and see how she wrote it because I think that's the style of some sort. There's inspiration there. And I know it because I'm following my intuition here. I was like, preach and do all at once and see what comes out. So I'm really excited about this because making these changes will be interesting because I've always gone with okay, everybody says you have to do this, this, and that to get that, this, and that. And for me, it's been an interesting personal struggle because I don't really think I've done it my way yet. And that has been changing over those last couple years where not even just how I share here on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or all these socials. I don't even know anymore. And I'm sure I'm out of date, just saying, not intentionally, but even how I work in private and group sessions. So everything's changed. Those big shifts that you guys have been on this experience with me, the ones that we've shared, the hypno sessions that we've done live, or just, that time to process and the support in knowing that I can process and come back and share has made the world of a difference. And I'm really excited for this. I'm a little nervous, little like, oh, let's jump off another cliff, Jen, and see where we go kind of thing. But you know what? That's okay. Because somehow we're going to learn how to fly even better than we did last time. So that being said, cutting cords. Well, this has been a theme I know that we made the show a couple weeks ago, and it was supposed to be a morning show. And life really did happen and I had to giddy up U-turn that entire day. And I wasn't able to do it, but maybe that wasn't the day to do it, because it's interesting because in the last couple of weeks, the amount of like cord cutting, not just personally, but also in sessions that is, I want to say randomly, but not randomly, because we all know nothing is random in this world, have come up. So I want to talk about it. Cord cutting. Now a lot of us think that that's what we do, when we have a soul contract with somebody and in this incarnation and we cut the cords, we can release it, we can let it go. And that's what it does. Well, that's one thing. But cord cutting can come across in many different things. You can cord cut with a past life. You can cord cut the generational and ancestral healing and like trauma and shock and belief systems and ideologies and everything that you've carried forward. You can cut those cords, not just for yourself, but for those in your lineage and who are ready to, unwind that block or that pattern, that cycle, or even cycles and patterns. If you imagine them as an energy, you can cut cords with them so that you begin to create space for change. And what once was is no longer dictating who you are in this moment. It can be experience that you draw from, but it doesn't have to be influencing it. Or past lives, you can cut cords with past lives, soul contracts. That's a big one. So, or karma. That's right. You can invite any and all souls that you have karmic connections with, and you can begin to unwind those karmic connections for your and their highest and greatest good. And as you release that energy that is tied in karma or tied in a soul contract, you make space. And when you make that space, it allows for new energy. Or, as I continue to see in group and one-on-one sessions, is for soul pieces to reintegrate into yourself. Those pieces of your soul that got pushed out because of the experiences or the energy that you're holding right now, whether that be from past or present lives and incarnations or relationships, both personal or professional, conversations and situations, events in your incarnations, whether present, past, linear, alternate, forwards, in a different reality, multiverse, or timeline, anything that you're holding on to that you begin to have access to or awareness of. There are energetic cords that tie you to that event, that situation, that conversation, that lifetime, that incarnation. And those cords hold an energy, they hold a presence and an essence. And as we begin to acknowledge the energy and the presence and essence of those cords, we get into the space of self-empowerment, because we can choose to keep them, we can choose to shift them. For instance, I have a client who came to me, and it's a longtime client of mine, and she wanted to disconnect the soul contracts between herself and two other family members, because their relationship, their whole relationship in this entire incarnation, turns out in a past incarnation, had been a little topsy-turvy. And she was ready to be in a space of completion. Done with the cycle, done with the pattern, the reoccurring relationship and role that each one of them is playing for each other and trying to resolve from another life. So we asked her soul to take us back to where the cords of connection between herself and the other two family members originated from. From there, we ended up in a past life that all three of them had incarnated into. Again, they had a personal relationship, and in that incarnation, there was some unfinished business, and that unfinished business needed to be completed. So we went through, we did our soul regression process, we did our soul screening, but at the end, we actually invited the higher selves of the two other family members to join and be a part of the process of releasing and letting go and shifting their participation, their connection, their cords to that original lifetime. That was one of the things, that themes that they, and patterns that they were trying to work through in this 21st century lifetime. So that was really interesting to watch. Actually, these two other higher selves, not ready to complete, not even close. And that's fine, because they didn't want to participate, but they were able, through cording and cutting cords, the method that we use in hypnosis in my soul regression sessions, we were able to unwind my client's connection to that pattern and cycle and actually complete it for her, knowing that that energy would be sent to the ether, and those two souls would have the opportunity at any point to finish the resolution and finish the cycles and patterns and be free of them, so that they could each move forward individually as a whole and on their own paths, instead of their past being entangled. That entanglement can be quite heavy to carry. And when we become aware of it, whether consciously or subconsciously, in a meditative state or trance state, we can begin to shift it. So, and when we're in these kind of sessions, when we're following a history of entanglement between family members, it is always, even if the higher self disagrees, the person in the chair, they have a right to go, okay, I'm finished, I'm complete. I've learned what I need to learn. I'm closing this gap. I'm shifting this energy. I'm releasing this energy in this cycle, in this pattern, and any effects it had on me physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically in this incarnation and from any other incarnation, and release it to the light and creation creator. And so we finished that process. And funny enough, over the next 72 hours, the interaction that my client had with one of the family members had gone 180 degrees. It had totally shifted. And I know this is a possibility. When we shift energetically, it does create a waterfall effect into our physical world. And but there's no really way to determine what that's going to look like until you experience it. And so I get a message from this client, and the interaction that she had with one of her family members was so different that in that moment, that different interaction gave her a whole other set of healing and understanding and resolution that had been in a totally different knapsack that she had been carrying with her relationship with this particular family member. And that began to peel away. So sometimes as we get into this courting situation, it can be a very powerful and unique way to begin to shift, both internally and externally, and to create space for both participants, or all participants, depending on what kind of courting session you do, to begin to unravel. That does not always mean that the other souls will choose to participate, but you've made it your clear intention that you're participating, closing off your side of it. And as you do that, that allows you to become less entangled in that dynamic, whatever that looks like. And it can be, I've done courting sessions with people and their animals. And it's amazing the insight that they've gained from connecting to the cords that are between themselves and their animal companion, their pet companion. A lot of horseback riders that I know, we've done this so that they can not only shift the cords between them and their, equine companion, but they get a little insight and they be able to communicate and express themselves in a different way, so that that bond and connection begins to shift, and in some cases open up. In other cases, I've seen them both come to an agreement that maybe their path together has come to a conclusion. However, they know that each other is going to get each other to the next part of their own journey. And the acceptance and the understanding and the wisdom and the knowledge around that really does make that next step in the person's journey a little bit easier and more profound. And so that, and sometimes it's about overcoming a block together. So I had one horseback rider and her horse, they had a jumping block, and together this block was, it was a big one. It was really preventing them from moving forward. So we found out where their courage around jumping was, and we went in and we shifted and cut those old cords. We released that energy. We redefined what their path looked like moving forward. And funny enough, and over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they had a totally different jumping relationship. So it's not just with other souls that are in the human form, but we can connect to, Mother Earth this way. We can connect to the elements of Mother Earth this way. We can connect to other beings this way. And getting familiar with that process and honoring and, really checking in, because sometimes we don't realize where those cards sit. And sometimes we don't feel them right away. And sometimes we don't understand what their purpose is. And by getting into a place where you have access to them and awareness of them, you can begin to ask yourself those questions, or ask those cords, the energy of the cord. What is the purpose? What is the intent behind the cord? Between, say you're recording with somebody or somebody you knew in the past, but that person's still living in your present. And you're like, why does this keep coming up? Well, perhaps there's still an energetic tie to that person, or an imprint that needs a little bit of help of dissolving and resolving itself, so both of you can move forward. And, I've seen people do this with exes. This is a big thing. And sometimes they never actually know the ex's response to this. However, how they feel and how their ex is in their head no longer exists, because that cord of connection, that energy, the entry point is shifted, and it's shifted on your side. And it does. And as a rule, we, even though we might not get the feedback, but we do see changes on the other side. I need to remove cords from, right? Actually, that's a thing. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about this, because I actually do this every day. So we have clients, we have people in our lives, including my family members who I love dearly and would go to the ends of the earth for. I constantly have to remove cords. And it's not because it's a negative thing. It's just because our energies are so entwined, it gets entangled. So I'm constantly disentangling cords from family members, or in a session, in a one-on-one or group session, Purple Princess. We, for those of you who have worked with me, my intuitive medium skills and abilities come out, and it's like they're there. And so after every session, I actually do release cords, not because it's a negative thing, but because my energy is mine, yours is yours, and I have to give it back. And so I do go through this little ritual of cutting cords now. And sometimes I get lazy and I don't do it. I do need them. But you know what? The cords won't remove them as your clients. It just removes the energy that you've absorbed from them. So their emotional energy, their mental, physical, energetic energy that they've put out in the world that maybe they don't want to carry. And if you are anything like an empath, we're really great at picking up stuff everywhere we go. So it's just one way to keep your aura clear, your energy, yours, theirs. But that doesn't mean you won't have a great communication. In fact, sometimes that opens up the communication a little bit more easily, because you guys aren't bouncing in each other's energy. You actually have those clear boundaries. And when those boundaries are there, you can communicate a little more effectively. And it actually allows you to draw energy to yourself. You know what? I actually will. I've had a lot of stress in my life lately. And you know what? As much as I'm good at what I do, sometimes I need a self-check. So courting is another way that I do a self-check. I'm like, okay, where am I plugging into people and drawing from people when I shouldn't be? Because you know what? We all can be a little bit of an energy vampire at times when we feel low. And so one of the things that I always kind of know that kind of is like, hey, maybe you should look at this, is when I'm feeling exhausted. If I'm ever exhausted after a session, I haven't cleared it. If I'm ever exhausted after an interaction, I've definitely absorbed something. So whether that be with a human, a light being, Gaia, any of Gaia's children's and creations, the trees, like there's a lot of ways that we can plug into things. And when we plug in, maybe it's to gain understanding. Like, for instance, when I do sessions, I often ask your higher self to show me what I need to know. Well, sometimes that comes across as physical discomfort. So I understand what you're talking about. So I can be like, hey, so what are you feeling in your chest muscles? Like, what does that mean to you? This is what I'm getting from you. Is this correct? And I will physically feel it. But if I don't actually release that cord of communication and understanding and wisdom and insight, then I've got a constant open, like, back and forth. And I really don't want anybody else's chest pain. I want to understand it so I can help you move through it, but I don't need to carry it. And I've had to learn that the hard way. And that was one of my greatest lessons in this incarnation was taking on other people's stuff is not helping me do what I want to do and be the person I want to be. It actually kind of holds you back a little bit because it becomes draining and exhausting. So if you're starting to feel drained, then you may want to check into your aura and feel if there's any cords between you and a person or a situation or a conversation that needs a little bit of communication and clearing and releasing and mending, resolving. Resolutions are really interesting. But yeah, so that is something, like, work is a thing. We have coworkers at work. We have jobs, even emails. You can actually get energy from emails and text messages. So if you feel that there's something going on, you can't let something go. One way to do that is to check in to see if there's any cords. Now, that doesn't mean you have to meditate. And a good friend of mine reminding me of this every once in a while. I get these little reminders of things I've kind of forgotten or things that it might not be the method that I've been using for a while, but they're damn good methods. So when I don't have time to sit down, meditate, do the whole everything that I like to do, I'm going to give you a cheat method. That's right. It's not really cheating. It's just a different way of doing it, but it's kind of fun. So you notice, you check in, you're like, oh yeah, there's definitely cords there. So find out where those cords are. And ask those cards what they represent. What's their primary purpose? And then you get a piece of paper out. For those of you who understand my artistic abilities, I have none. My artistic ability comes out through my work and what I do in the soul regression and connect with your, that there's my art right there. But to draw a physical person, my capacity at this point in my life, because I have not worked on honing in on it, is stick figures. So I, being your, that is where my max capacity with art is. I draw my 2 stick figures and I put my name above one and whomever, or if I, it's an animal, then I do attempt to draw a cat, dog, or a horse, or whatever, a bird, whatever comes forward. And I put their name above it. And then on that piece of paper, connect the cords and I write down what they represent, what their primary purpose is. And then I say this to myself. I, Jen, release any and all cords, connections, energies, imprints, impressions, belief systems, various belief systems, habits, behaviors, reactions, responses, and cords with that person or animal from any life, past, present, or future, from any conversation, situation, or event, from any timelines, forwards or backwards, or alternate, any reality, dimension, or universe within and outside of time, immediately and permanently. And then I cut the paper. And as I cut the paper all the way up, I imagine those cords clearing, cleansing with divine energy and releasing from us both so that they are fully dissolved by the time I finish cutting down the middle of that piece of paper. And then I take those 2 pieces of paper and I have a shell that I do my saging in, and I put the paper in the shell and I burn it. And I release it through the element of fire, and then I release the element of fire for drawing out that energy, completing the process, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. And I release the ashes. So it sounds a lot longer than it is. as fast as I can say it, you can cut. And the burning doesn't take as long. If you're not in a place to burn, then just next time you have the opportunity, you can rip up the paper as much as you can and just, you could give it to the elemental water, give it to the elemental earth, fire, or I wouldn't suggest letting the wind carry it away because that's littering. But you can just find your own method of disposal. And if you feel cutting the paper down the middle is more than enough, the last step is totally up to you, but that's just something that I always feel completes the process for me. So you have to understand, like, what completes it for you is going to be perfect for you. And that's an easy way to cut cords, to release that energy between yourself, another being. And if it's your, clients or coworkers or, your family members. Know that when you do it, it's not, if it's in a space of, okay, return to sender. Because, if you gather other people's energy, it's like walking around with a flat and a high heel. And if you're anything like me, that's never going to happen. It's not going to feel great. I'll probably break my ankle trying to walk around in high heels. And then having only one and a flat, for sure, I'm going down. And so when I, always set the intention that I return this energy to sender in their highest form so that energy can go to creation, come back to that person in its highest form, in its highest vibration and frequency. And that's how I usually set my intention before I even begin the processes. This is about returning to sender. Or if it's about completing soul contracts or completing past life ties and connections, because you don't have time to go back to the whole life and work through it. So what's tying it to you? What emotion is, what imprint, what impression is keeping that past life active in your present incarnation? And is it serving your highest and greatest good? Well, that's what you have to determine, because if it's not, and you've learned the lesson, maybe it's time to let that lesson be a part of your Akashic records in a closed book, one that you can access if you ever need to revisit that wisdom and understanding, that experience to help you in the very best way that it can, or one that you can now complete and be done. Because we are in this time, and I keep saying it, and it's really cool to see other mediums and intuitives. And I've been putting them on my Telegram group, the Journey of Jen Snow, talk about this. Because I felt like I was a little crazy talking about it all the time. Like, hey, we're coming to an end of completion. Cycles completing. Do the work, do the work, do the work. I feel like I'm, I don't mean to be pushy, but I am a pushy, bossy person. But this time is a really big time as we go into the year of the 8 to complete those infinite cycles that we've been working towards ending and putting into that space of completion. So as we go into the year of the 8, we can be on the top side of that infinity cycle where we are now in that flow of manifesting, creating, and attracting abundance versus the opposite. And, it is about completion. So completing and also it helps you get to know your energy field. And the more you get to know your energy field, the more you become in tune with yourself. And the more you become in tune with yourself, the more that insight and wisdom, synchronicities, and opportunities, because that's what I believe shadow work is opportunities can reveal themselves so that you can continue to shift more and more and release the layers that are no longer serving you, but also gain layers of your soul and integrate those layers that are able to help you move forward in the very best way that you can, and to access those inner abilities that are just waiting for you. Because I believe we have abilities beyond abilities, and slowly and not effortlessly, because it is an effort, they're starting to integrate, and they're starting to integrate from other dimensions, so that we're beginning to remember and feel these timelines collapse upon us, so that our energy in this current incarnation becomes a little more whole and unified and harmonized. And as it becomes harmonized, we become a little more in a space of remembering things, remembering abilities, remembering wisdom and insight that we have gained over the thousands of lifetimes and incarnations that most of us have gone through. And how to apply that? Well, that's the fun part, because Earth itself is an interesting space to apply soul wisdom and understanding. And it's a very physical reality, but we have the opportunity to begin to shift it if we are shifting our internal landscape to match that ability to connect with our inner abilities. So that's today's show, Cord Cutting 101. Thank you for your time, your energy. And I will be playing with the days on the show just because I want to find that sweet spot. That spot where we can get together, we can hang out, we can talk, I can answer questions. We can sometimes just, maybe talk about whatever's on everybody else's mind, because I think that's an important thing. I know for myself that there is a lot of stuff, information that I have that I sometimes don't know how I have it. And I hold on to it and I keep it in and I wait and I wait and I wait. And it's always fun when I can share it. And somebody's like, oh, you know what? I was wondering the same thing. Or we can have those open conversations. And I know that's part of where this will be going in the 2024, is that's kind of, part of the show that I want to bring, is this conversation and just communicating, because we are all at where we are at, and we're all at different spaces and places. But that doesn't mean that we don't have insight and inspiration to offer each other, because maybe where you are, I haven't got there yet, but I know I'm going to get there, and vice versa. And that little bit just of knowing that you're not alone is a huge thing, because, as these shadows show up, as these parts of us that are stuck in the old want to be unwound and released, and so they can come back into their light form and really integrate in that positive way. It can feel like a really lonely journey, and it can feel like I must be losing it. And been there, done that, still got that t-shirt, that handbag, that lipstick. And every once in a while, it's just really nice to have a conversation where it's like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one getting this. All right, cool. What did you get? And then we can bounce back and forth. So I want to just thank you so much for your time, your energy, and I look forward to the next show, which I believe is going to be on Friday, because I really like my coffee morning shows with you guys. It's a great way to start my day. So that's the selfish aspect of me coming out, but that's okay, because it's just fun. And that's what I want to do, is I want to have a little more fun and show and share and see where it takes us. So thank you guys for your energy, your time. I hope that you have a wonderful evening. Purple Princess, we'll see you in a little bit. And I can't wait. So thanks, guys. I appreciate you. I am grateful that you always have patience when I go on these little blips of needing to figure things out or get to a place where I'm ready to share what's happening and make these shifts so that I can share them with you guys. All right. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Enjoy your evening. Beautiful souls.